Hi, this is Nima, and this is the common print run analysis for Theros Beyond Death. Coming in a little bit late, but gonna put it out there anyways. Oh yeah, so right off the bat, there's a lot more packs that are made in Japan that have been going out in booster boxes. I've seen like maybe like a 50-50 split over here, and that used to be pretty typical for like the British or I guess United Kingdom or Australian shops. They got a lot of the international packs that were made in Japan and they use a different print run. And it's been happening a lot more over here as well. So if you see like the token in the front of the pack, this none of this stuff works for that. It has to be a made in USA pack, and they're going to have the commons in the front and then all the rares and stuff in the back. So talking about the set, it it does have like a pretty strong gimmick with enchantments, but as far as commons and colors go, that doesn't really change anything. It actually has like the bare minimum of artifacts, and it has no multicolor commons, so this is pretty kind of bare bones set for kind of weird color stuff going on. So there's 19 commons of each color. There's one land and there's 5 artifacts. The short printed common is the equipment bronze sword. So you see that in a 5 bronze swords for every 6 of every other common in this set. And this is like just typical how it's been in every single set for the last few years. There's blue, red, and white in the front of the pack, and there's some green and black stuff in the center. And it runs out with the C1 or C2. C1 usually has more cards in there, and C2 has either 4 or 2 cards. You'll have all your strong commons in the C runs as usual, although there are a little bit um, strange things going on with that. Like for example, just looking at Run A right now, getting into it, Ichthyomorphosis is in the Run A section, and I'm pretty sure we've all decided that this is the best blue common in the set, and it's really strange to see it in Run A instead of Run C, especially since it seems like they made a pushed aura for every single color, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, like Dreadful Apathy is in C, Myra's Grasp is in C, Irosa's Blessing is in C, and then C2 has Warbriar Blessing. But then the really strong aura that's in blue is in Run A instead of Run C. A little bit strange, although the normal stuff like the big blue flyer is in Run C, and then the big white flyer is in Run C, so that stuff's still happening. But for some reason, the strong blue removal spells in Run A. I don't know if that's like an intentional thing. Maybe he got a little bit pushed at the very end, and it was supposed to be more expensive. Actually, I wonder if they switched the blue uncommon and Ichthyomorphosis together. That kind of makes sense because that blue uncommon, I think, something with the stars seems more weak than Ichthyomorphosis. This is a little bit weird. Oh yeah, so just Run A has white, blue, and red cards in that order: white, blue, red, white, blue, red. Just a lot of kind of meh blue cards, and then there's Ichthyomorphosis. And red has a bunch of also meh, but I think it's just all the red commons are not super valuable except for the one Irosa's Blessing. White has like several pretty good strong commons just in general, and then that also happens in Run A. Like Glory Bearers is definitely a little bit pushed. Helios Program is really strong. Karametra's Blessing is very powerful. Omen of the Sun is solid. Sunmade Pegasus is solid. There's a removal spell, Triumphant Surge in here. Usually like the second best white common removal spell ends up in Run A though, so that's not super weird. In Run B, the small blue flyer ended up in Run for blue in Run A. That's a little bit strange. But then everything else in here, like the common bounce spell, that's just all right. I think it's actually pretty strong in the set, but it's in here, and like the counter spells in here as well. But they haven't made like a very strong common counter spell in a very long time, so I usually see it in Run A. It's just like a bunch of utility things in here. Like Naiad of the Hidden Coast, I love it. I like it a lot. It's really cool, and Riptide Turtle is the same way. It's a good utility card, but not something you're going to pick very, very early, which is, I think it's mostly true for Run A, except for Ichthyomorphosis is kind of the standout there. Going into Run B, this was not figured out completely, but here are the cards in here. It's a bunch of, it's the same way. It's like utility black card, utility green cards. I think both of the 2 drops for each color are in here, although I think green has a ton of 2 drops. So they have one in here, the Skola Grave Dancer. And then the Temple Thief is in here as well, just like the curve filling utility stuff, right? Both of the omens are in here as well. Plummet's in here, that's pretty typical. And there's a lot of good black cards in here on the other hand, like Blight Breath Catoblepus. Oh, I got it right on the first try. That's in here, and that's just a really strong common, so it's kind of nice to see it in run B. Usually, um, run A cards and run B cards end up going later in the pack because people grab up the run C cards or the uncommons first. So that means you can get a Catoblepus. It'll show up in the same pack as like Myers Grasp, and then you'll have a Catoblepus go like 5th pick or something, which is great if you're a heavy black drafter, which I'm pretty sure is most people at this point. Oh yeah, Underworld Charger's in here as well, and I guess I'm not going to go through every single card, but I just wanted to say, like, I like most of these black cards. Like, this is supposed to be kind of like the weaker black cards or mediocre black cards, and I think I've played everything in here at some point, which is pretty crazy for black. And green has, I think I've played most of these cards as well. Yeah, green's pretty good in the set too. I really don't like Grove Dancer, although other people like it, I guess. But like Loathsome Chimera is something that most decks want one of at least. And then like Nyxborn Colossus and Nylea's Forerunners are, they're kind of like what I expect. They're mediocre, but they're playable for sure. And like Moss Viper is in here as well, just a utility card. So then we're going to go into run C1, which is when things get really, really interesting. And this one's actually really abusive. So this has all the colors in there and it has some of the artifacts. It's 55 long. Every card shows up twice, and then there's a couple cards that always show up with the same card, which is definitely abusable. Oh yeah, I just want to go through the really strong ones like Daybreak Chimera, the strong white flyers in here, Dreadful Apathy, one of the best commons in the set. Myers Crops, I think we're settling on this being the best common in the set. All the blue cards are boring, and although I guess Omen of the Sea is something that people really like a lot, even though I think it's a little bit overvalued. And then green has Voracious Typhon, which is a big deal, and Elysian Caryatid as well. And then Irosa's Blessing is also a huge deal. So, yeah, the abusive things. Towering Wave Mystic is right next to Daybreak Chimera the both times it shows up. So Towering Wave Mystic on here, Daybreak Chimera on here, Towering Wave Mystic on here, Daybreak Chimera on here. So if you see common missing, Daybreak or Towering Wave Mystic in the pack, it's pretty solid that you can get a Daybreak Chimera in there. Dreadful Apathy always shows up with Eidolon Philosophy. Same thing, super abusable. Irosa's Blessing shows up with Setessan Skirmisher, which is a card that's always going to wheel, so you can always tell if there's a Irosa's Blessing missing out of the pack. And that's actually really important because you definitely don't want to be down. You don't want to be a red drafter downstream of another red drafter. You have to make sure the red's open for you to try to go for that. Scophos War Leader shows up with Myers Grasp, the best black common, or best common in the set, I would say. So that one's always good to know. Although even if you know that your neighbor's in black, you might go into black anyways. But it's good to know. Venomous Hierophant is the Death Toucher that self-mills you. It's right next to the Artifact Bird. I'm not going to try to say it. The Artifact Bird is right next to each other. That one's not as useful because I don't think Venomous Hierophant goes early. And then there's a couple more kind of boring ones. Satyr's Cunning and Hero the Prior right next to each other. And then Witness of Tomorrows and Rumbling Sentry are right next to each other. But if you see someone guesses like forcing blue, you can notice that pretty easily. The one thing I did want to look out for is that there's like this one run over here that's like Typhon, Scophos War Leader, Myers Grasp, Towering Wave Mystic, Daybreak Chimera, and you can get all 5 of these cards in one pack. And if there's a common missing, like I could say, oh yeah, there's a Towering Wave Mystic still in here. So that means they took a Daybreak Chimera, but it's not exactly true because they could have taken a Myers Grasp. So just keep in mind that Scophos War Leader and Towering Wave Mystic in the pack, it probably means that you'll see a Myers Grasp in there, or someone took the Myers Grasp. So that's like one little weird exception to look out for, but someone got a nut pack and they're probably like over the moon about that. Unfortunately, Versus Typhon doesn't have anything obvious to go with it. So that's kind of annoying because I would have really liked to find something abusive for that. Moving on to run C2. Each card shows up in here 3 times, so it's not as easy to find any kind of reliable pattern, but I just wanted to point out that Revoke Existence is in here. Brine Giant. I guess Brine Giant's supposed to be a strong card because there's supposed to be a strong card for every color in here. Final Death is in here. That's clearly the best black common in the run C2. Amogi's Favor is also in here, and I think for red, I'm guessing for red, like it's supposed to be Omen of the Forge and Flummox Cyclops are supposed to be the strong cards. Unfortunately, those don't really pan out. I do like the Cyclops a lot, and I think Omen of the Forge is definitely something that you want one of. Like, you never want to miss out on one, but it's definitely not super strong card or even really stronger than most of the run A cards. And then green has Return to Nature, which is usually a weak card, but in this set, it's actually really strong because it kills enchantments. And then Warrior's Blessing, clearly a really strong green common. And then the artifacts and lands are boring. Although the other one had Travel Amulet. It's like the only like artifact that's worth even mentioning. So yeah, the links to here are in the notes for the video, and I hope this is helpful for you guys. Thanks for watching.